Good morning, yogis. It's Saturday, May 30th, and it's time for us to begin our practice. Today, I want to practice a lateral yoga practice. These are side bends. And before we get started, I wanted to talk about a song that I was listening to. It's by the Talking Heads. It's one of my favorites, called Heaven. And to me, my interpretation is that it speaks about meditation and the experience of what can be attained through the practice of meditation. The song has a part of it, heaven. Heaven is a place where nothing ever happens. And so if we think of heaven as being a place of bliss, pure bliss, then how can it be that when nothing is happening is pure bliss? So one way to think about this is that when we think of things happening, we can think of these as objects that draw our attention to them. So often this would be, drawing our attention to the external objects of the world, or possibly pain in the body, perhaps pleasure as well, sexual pleasure, for example, which is quite nice also. But how is it that when nothing is happening, how is this pure bliss? And the way Swami Rama describes the condition of samadhi is there's no more agitation, there are no more questions to be resolved. All is resolved, all is known. And the description goes further on to say that it's about how the mind works. The mind shifts from likes and dislikes. We are presented in that intellect options of what we like and don't like. And the intellect then makes a decision, hopefully a conscious decision, on what it wants to do. Swami Rama calls this kalpas and sankalpas, the things that we want or things that we don't want. And we're constantly presented with this. In the external world, we may see a beautiful sunset. We like that. We might be stuck in traffic. We don't like this. The mind shifts from what it likes and doesn't like. So it's a constant moving from one to the other. It's the job of the mind, actually, to give us these options so that we can make decisions. And so how is it that when all of this stops, that bliss is experienced? It's kind of like sitting comfortably in your backyard, perhaps, being totally relaxed and just experiencing the true nature of yourself, just the bliss that's within you. Because the soul itself is considered to be pure bliss, to experience the bliss that is inside of you. And the philosophy here is that it's not that we're creating this bliss, but in fact that we're uncovering that which is already there. Pure bliss, waves and waves of bliss. The song goes on to say that when this kiss is over, it will start again. It will not be any different. It will be exactly the same. Now, what does that mean? Perhaps you've heard me talk about Purusha, the true self, that which is unchanging. The Purusha is the part of us that you could say is connected with that soul that I just described, and it's always constant. It's always the same. Another way to think of it is that which changes is subject to the cycle of life, birth and death, the cycle of life, always changing. However, there's a part of us that is eternally the same, and this is what we could describe as Purusha. Prakriti, the opposite, is that which is changing. So the body itself is something that's changing over time. The mind itself, the way it shifts from one thing to the other, it's constantly changing. Our emotions constantly changing. So our experience in the external world is like a thing that constantly changes. Doesn't mean that it's a bad thing, because if we can live in this place where things change, and yet we be connected to that unchanging part of ourselves, we can be totally balanced in our lives. And to be able to be seated, as you might think of as in a movie theater, seated in pure bliss, and to watch the show that's unfolding around us. And furthermore, to decide what actions that we will take in this changing world that's around us. Now, the path to get there is a path, a journey, that you could say starts very difficult, because we need to get past a place where our minds might be set at, where they're constantly shifting, the distracted mind. And we need to train ourselves to be able to stay focused and to keep our attention focused on one thing. Often this one thing is the breath itself, to just keep your attention on your breath. Or it could be a mantra, something that you remember, a phrase that you remember over and over again. And so seated in this place, we will find that we experience our obstacles, these obstacles that are preventing us from moving to this state of total peace. This is how the mind is wandering around. It feels like a ship that's in a storm, rocking, perhaps feeling as if it's ready to tip over and dump all of us into this crazy ocean. But as we continue to work with it, the seas begin to calm until finally there's a beautiful calm sea. In the description of Samkhya Yoga, the description is an island in this calm ocean with waves that come up against the shore of the island. Each wave, another wave of bliss. And this wave of bliss could be described as the stirrings of divine. We could use the word God, the divine stirring around us, the Shakti that creates, Shakti of creation that creates life and animation around us and within ourselves. Anyway, let's get started with our practice. And as usual, let's begin with our breath. So begin to breathe in slowly and deeply, and exhale slowly and completely, drawing your navel in towards your spine, firmly. Bringing and keeping your attention on this flow of the breath. Eyes can be closed, and as you do this, examine how your body feels. Perhaps there's at first an experience of some kind of tension in the body. And try to relax the tension, especially during the exhale. The exhale is a letting go process. And so you could imagine almost as if we're draining this tension, eliminating it out of our body as we exhale the breath from the body. You can think of it as a cleansing process, clearing us, releasing us. And this subtle tension that we might feel, and sometimes it might be more when we're agitated, is like an energy that can be released with the breath. Simply by moving into this balanced breath, we bring ourselves into a state of homeostasis. And it's very healthy for us. If only we do this for a few minutes every day, it can change us in wonderful ways. Or perhaps in the morning and the evening, for a few minutes. And just using the breath to bring us to a state of calmness and to release tension in the body. As we move into our postures or asanas, we will further release the tension and create a sensation of spaciousness in the body, which can be described as freedom from the bondage of tension in the body. So let's begin to move now with your arms at your sides. Make sure your spine is erect and straight. Extend the arms up as you draw the breath in and lengthen the spine. Exhale, lowering your chin towards your chest. And let's continue. Let's begin to bend, extending the right arm up as you exhale. Gently bend to your left. And continue to the other side. And let's take a few more cycles. On the next cycle, we'll stay in the side bend for a moment. And what we want to experience here is, how do we bend to the side properly? So it's not just a bend and a sensation of contraction in the side body, but what we want to do is extend the crown of the head away, as if we're trying to lengthen the spine. And as you do that, you'll feel the navel center strengthen, to lift and extend, to create more space between the vertebrae, the bones of the spine, by lengthening as we extend. And let's move to the other side and stay for a moment there. Now, one thing as we stay here and we work with that spinal extension once more, you might notice whether one side was feeling more tension than the other. I felt that myself, but decide or experience whether you do as well. Which side was it for you? From here, let's extend the arms back as we open the chest, breathing in. And as we exhale, we'll tuck, drawing the navel in toward the spine. And let's continue. Expand the chest, keeping the chin slightly tucked. There's no reason to lift the chin here. Very good. Now we'll prepare to twist, lowering your arms. Extend the arms up as you breathe in. And as you exhale, turn to your right and gaze over your shoulder. And then to the other side. And let's continue. Once more on each side. Very good. Extend the arms up. Lower your hands to the floor. And let's move on to our hands and knees to prepare to move in and out of our child's pose. Center yourself on your mat, placing your palms under your shoulders, your knees under your hips. And take a breath in. And as you exhale, slowly move back into your child's pose, drawing your navel in firmly toward your spine and rising back up as you breathe in. And let's continue with this slow movement. Move a little bit slower than you started. Notice if the movement can become more smooth, as the breath as well, more smooth. And as you move in this way, see if you can synchronize the movement of your body with the movement of your breath. In this way, the movement of the body is following the breath instead of the opposite. And there's a subtle difference between the two. Normally, during the day, probably most of the time, our breath is following the movement of the body. Unconsciously, the mind is directing the body to go here or there, and the breath just moves on its own, following what the body's doing. Here, we work with a more subtle situation where the mind is directing the breath and the movement of the body is following the breath. Let's come into our child's pose and stay for a moment. And let yourself release. As we stay here, notice that as you relax and let go with your exhale, as we described earlier, notice if the breath is totally coming out of you, or whether you're retaining a bit. And with each exhale, draw your navel in towards your spine, and try to make yourself more and more empty with your exhale. And notice how the body responds to that, and the tension in the body is slowly released. I like to point out that this is a very fundamental aspect of all of our postures, to be aware of what is happening, the link of the breath with what the body is doing. Let's come up onto our hands and knees, and we'll step the right foot between the hands, leaving the left knee on the floor. Draw the breath in, and imagine as you breathe in, extend the crown of your head away, and feel a release around the left hip as you extend the crown of the head away. And as you exhale, keep your waist pressed against your right thigh, lifting the ball of the right foot off the floor. Now I want you to feel a release in the hamstrings here, gently. Don't force it. And especially don't go so far back that you feel any kind of tension in your lower back. As you move back, keep your waist pressed against your thigh, and just come back to the point where you can feel a slight release in the tension in those hamstrings. Be aware of your breath as you're moving. And on the next cycle, let's just take a moment to stay in the hurdler shape. And as we stay, we can make micro adjustments. You can begin to, as if you're turning your pelvis, your tail toward the sky, noticing how this helps to straighten the lower spine. Letting go with each exhale. Let's come up and tuck the left foot under, lifting the knee off the floor and straightening the leg. This is our low lunge. Again, we work with lengthening the spine, the crown of the head extending away, and at the same time we work with straightening the left leg. Let's step back into our downward facing dog now. And lower onto the knees, back into our 4 points as we started before. Step your left foot forward And come into your low lunge variation, again, extending the crown of the head away as you breathe in. And as you exhale, moving back into the hurdler shape. And let's continue. On the next cycle, we'll stay for a moment. Think of those micro adjustments. And let's come forward, tucking the right foot under, lift the knee off the floor, and straighten the leg. Extend the crown of the head away. And let's step back into our downward facing dog once more. From here, we'll start to pedal our heels. Take your time with that. And let's stay on one side for a moment. And then the other side. From here, step your right foot between your hands into the low lunge. Then pivot the left foot, lowering the heel to the floor and rising up. Stand as if you're taking a big step forward. And adjust your placement of your feet so your pelvis or your hips are facing the direction that you face. If you place your hands on your sides, notice if you're turned slightly and make your adjustment. Take the right arm behind, palm facing away, lift the right shoulder up and roll it back. Feel the chest opening on the right side. And as you breathe in, extend the left arm up. And prepare to extend slowly and fold into pyramid. Let's rise up. Now, on the next cycle, we'll come down halfway. And imagine you're going to bend to the right. So we're going to add a bend here. So we're moving to the right and adding that extension as we described before, then continue to fold. And rise up. So now we're coming in and out of these pyramid shapes, adding that slight lateral bend to the right. And let's continue. 2 more times. On the last one, we can place our hand next to the big toe of the right foot. Let yourself fold. Come up onto your fingertips and begin to turn your shoulders to the right to extend the right arm up. A reversed triangle shape, revolved triangle. Lower the right arm down and step back into down dog. Staying for just a moment in the down dog. And we'll step the left foot between the hands. Pivoting the right heel. Rising up. And squaring our hips as we did before. Again, we can place the hands on our sides. And notice if we have a turn and adjust that. You might need to adjust where your feet are touching the floor to get the pelvis square. Notice that I can tilt the pelvis here. We want the pelvis to be horizontal and square in the direction that we're facing. Take your left arm behind, lift the left shoulder up, and roll it back. Feel the chest again opening on the left side. And let's extend the right arm up now. First, we'll bend through the center as we did before. Slowly come down, lengthening the spine, folding, and rising up. Now, let's come halfway at first, straightening the spine and then bending to the left side this time, then continuing down. And rising up. Continuing with this movement. On the next cycle, let's prepare to stay. Here, the fingertips can come down next to the big toe of the left foot. Firmly draw your navel in toward your spine as you exhale. Again, make sure your hips are square and horizontal. Firmly drawing the navel in toward the spine as you exhale. Then we'll lift the chest and begin to turn to the left and extend the left arm up. Again, in the revolved triangle shape. And let's lower the left arm and step back into our down dog. Let's come into plank and lower down. Extend your left arm out and roll onto your left side. I have to move this microphone pack out of the way so I can come onto my left. And so we're laying on our left side. We'll slide the heels forward an inch. And so there's a slight hinge in the hip joints here. And let's go into that hip rotation. Float the right leg over, internally rotate it, and gently touch the big toe on the floor. Lift it, externally rotate it, and touch the heel. And let's repeat this a few times. Floating the left leg, the right leg I should say, bend the knee and bring the foot to touch your inner thigh. Think of this as a tree laying in the floor of the forest. And we just open, turning the knee up toward the sky, and try tucking your pelvis under as you do that. There's a slight contraction in the lower abdominals to create strength in this area. From here, we'll take the right hand, cradling the inner thigh, and extending the leg up. As you do that, notice if you feel a contraction in this right side of the body. Try to lengthen your spine, and either remain as you are, or if it's accessible for you, you can hook your big toe. And staying for a moment. Notice that as you do this, the shoulder can extend away to create more length in the arm. And let's lower the leg. We're going to roll over onto our other side, and I'm going to switch my direction so I can be facing you. So again, the slight hinge of the hips, We'll float the left leg and internally rotate it to touch the big toe, and then we touch the heel behind. So again, what we're doing here is to just create a rotation. Think of the leg as being one unit, like a stick or a branch, and we're just trying to turn in the ball and socket joint in your hip. So we want to loosen any kind of restrictions that we feel inside this area as we do this. Float the leg, bend the knee, and place the sole of your foot on the inner thigh. Tucking the pelvis under gently. Adding a slight contraction in these lower abdominals as we do that. Again, a tree laying on its side in the forest. Then we'll cradle the inner thigh and extend the leg up. As before, you can also choose to hook your big toe. Let's release it. And we'll roll over prone to come up onto our forearms. Tucking your pelvis under. And as you breathe in, lift your chest, keeping the chin tucked, and bend your right knee. Draw the heel in towards your bottom. And then the other side. Notice that you may be feeling a kind of tugging sensation in your lower waist as you bend on the side where your knee is bending. Feel that tugging sensation. And know that this is the psoas muscle. Deep. So if you think of your navel center as having a few layers of muscle, this is deeper than those surface layers. Down next to your spine. And the psoas connects through the hip joint from the lower spine into the femur or thigh bone. So we're crossing that joint. And the movement begins to release any tension that's deep inside of there. And perhaps we didn't know it was there and we're feeling it as we bend the knee. Waking up our connection to the muscle. Let's bend both knees together now. Once more. And we'll prepare for cobra now. So we lower down, placing our hands on either side of the body, on either side of the chest. The legs are straight, pelvis is tucked under. Reach your legs back. Try to lift one and then the other. Feel length, keeping the pelvis tucked under. Lift into your cobra shape. Breathe deep into the center of your chest. And let's lower down as we exhale. Let's prepare to remain in cobra for a few breaths. Lowering down, come up onto your hands and knees and move into your child's pose. Sit back into your heels. Take your arms and bring them to the left and come into a side bend. And breathe into the right side of your body, the ribs there in the right side. Imagine you're trying to use your breath like a balloon to expand the space between your ribs with your breath. And again, recall that in our side bends, we're also extending the crown of the head away. So try to reach the crown of your head away and create length in your spine as you bend. Let's come back to the center. Straighten and lengthen the spine. And then shift over to the other side. Breathing deeply. Coming back to the center, rise up onto your hands and knees. Take your hands and walk your fingertips back to either side of your knees. Tucking your toes under, roll your knees off the floor and lift your heels. Reach your tail towards your heels. Feel your waist against your thighs. Lower your heels down toward the mat, squeezing your ankles toward each other. Taking a moment to hang upside down and bending the knees to feel your waist against your thighs. Draw your shoulders away from your ears and gently turn your head like you're saying no slowly and release tension in your neck. Look at your feet, make sure they're parallel, ankles squeezing toward each other. And let's come into a seat, bending the knees, rising into chair as you inhale, fold as you exhale. And let's repeat. Let's stay in chair for a few breaths. Rising up, lower your arms to your sides, and we stand now in mountain. From here, we'll bring our legs together, tucking the pelvis under. Extend your left arm up, straight up. Lengthen the spine and begin to bend to your right. Again, as we come into this side bend, the extension, the crown of the head reaching away. Feel the lower abs engaged. Rising up, let's go to the other side. So at first, the arms straight. Create the extension, and then begin to bend. Notice that if we come into it gently, as tension is released in the body, as we further extend the crown of the head away, our bend might come deeper without creating a strong contraction in the side body. There'll be some there, but work more on lengthening your spine. Let's rise up, lowering the arms down and taking a moment to adjust. Now, just a moment ago, we were laying on our sides with our leg open to the side. And I'd like to repeat that again, standing up. You might want to step off of your cushy mat and stand on a harder surface. It's up to you. Feet parallel. Let's bring our hands together and float the left foot off the floor. Open your knee and place your foot on your inner thigh. This is our tree shape. You can try drawing the heel up closer to the crotch if you wish. Then we'll go into this extension as we did before. You can cradle the inner thigh or perhaps hook the big toe. Let's lower the foot down and take a moment to adjust in our mountain shape. Feel your toes on the ground. Think of your toes like roots. Squeeze them as if you're digging the ground with your toes, energizing the toes and spreading the toes wide apart as well to help with our balance. Let's move on to the other side now, at first in our tree shape. And again, we can draw the heel up closer if we wish. Then, as before, we begin to extend. Decide what is serving you. Woo. Well, for me, I was a little off balance on that side. So let's place the foot down and take a moment to adjust. From here, standing at the front of your mat, we'll prepare to fold forward. Extend your arms up, and as you exhale, soften your knees and slide the hands down the back of your legs to fold. Then we'll come into a half bend, lifting the chest. Fold forward, and to rise up, extend your arms straight behind you. Come up halfway, lengthening like the letter L or inverted L, and use your heels to push into the ground to rise up, extending the arms up and lowering them to your sides as you exhale. Extend up as you breathe in, and let's again fold forward. Come into the half bend, lifting the chest. Exhale, fold, and let's rise up, lowering your arms. Once more. From here, we'll be moving into our downward facing dog. First, come into your half bend, and then step back into down dog as you exhale. Prepare for side plank. Come into your plank and stay for a moment. Bringing your ankles against each other, or possibly lowering your left knee to the floor to support yourself. And turn to your right to extend the right arm up. As you breathe in, reach the arm away and bend, and then straighten. Continue. Extend the arm up and stay. Decide if you'd like to float the leg off the floor. You can try a sideways tree, gently touching your inner thigh, or you can try extending the leg away. Let's lower the leg down. Come back into your down dog and stay for a moment. Move into your plank. This time the right knee can come to the floor or the legs together as you turn to your left. Extend the arm away and bend. Exhale and straighten. Inhale, bend. Exhale and straighten. Once more. And staying. If the legs are straightened, you can try gently touching the sole of your foot on your inner thigh, or you can try hooking the big toe. Let's come back into our down dog. Moving into plank as you breathe in, lower down onto your mat. Rise into cobra and press back into down dog. Staying for a few cycles of breath. Gazing between your hands and walking towards your hands to come into the half bend, lifting the chest. Fold as you exhale and rise up as we described before. Extending the arms up, lowering them to your sides, standing in mountain. Let's prepare for our warrior three. We'll start with the left leg going back. So let's bring our palms together, float the left foot off the floor, flex the heel, and begin to extend it back, hinging at your hip. Perhaps extending the arms away. From here, we'll bring the fingertips to the floor under the shoulders, as if you're in a half bend, but with your leg extended. With an internal rotation of the left leg, we're going to extend the right arm up and come into a revolved half moon. Let's lower the arm and bring the foot down, coming into our forward bend. Extending the arms back, rising up as we practiced, lowering your arms to your sides, coming once more into mountain. So let's prepare for the other side. Raise your right foot off the floor. Extend the leg back, begin to hinge to move into your warrior three. Extending the arms away, if you wish. Lowering your fingertips under your shoulders as if you're in a half bend. Internally rotating the right thigh. And this time we'll extend the left arm up into our revolved half moon. Lowering the foot down with your knees soft, fold forward, squeezing your ankles toward each other. And let's rise up and lower the arms to our sides, standing in mountain. From here, extend the arms up, standing at the front of your mat, and fold forward. Come into your half bend and step back into down dog. Step your right foot between your hands and prepare for high lunge. Rise up into your high lunge. Take a breath in, and as you exhale, lower the heel as you turn your heel, opening the arms to the sides, and then bending the right knee to come into warrior two. I should say it's your left knee, though. Warrior two. From here, we'll prepare for half moon. Extend your left arm up in reverse warrior, and as you exhale, gaze at the floor in front of you. Hop your right foot forward and bring your fingertips to the floor as the right leg floats off the floor. So before we were in the revolved half moon. This time we're in the half moon, and so our chest is turning in the different direction than before. Using your balance, slowly come back and move back into your reverse warrior. And as you exhale, swing your arms over your head, bring your hands to the floor, and step back into your downward facing dog. Let's step the right foot between the hands and prepare for high lunge. As you breathe in, straighten the right leg, pivot the left heel, turn to open into warrior two. Moving into reverse warrior. And preparing for half moon. Again, hop the left foot forward, lower your fingertips down, and float the left leg off the floor, an external rotation of the left leg, so the toes point in the direction that you're facing. And let's slowly move back into our reverse warrior. And as you exhale, swing the arms over the head, lowering the hands to the floor, and stepping back into down dog. From here, step your left foot between your hands, pivot the right heel, placing your left forearm on your thigh. Try to scoot the right foot a little further back, and turn to come into extended side angle. Let's take the right arm up and over, and stay for a moment. Bringing the right arm to your side, straighten the left leg, and we'll come into our triangle shape. Reaching away at first, hinging, lowering the arm and extending the right arm up, turning your gaze toward the sky. Lowering the right arm, bend the left knee, reverse warrior. And as you exhale, swing your arms over your head, hands to the floor, step back into down dog. Right foot steps between the hands, pivoting the left heel, moving into your extended side angle on this side. Bringing the left arm to your side, straighten the right leg, extend the right arm up. Extend the arms apart and begin to hinge. Preparing for triangle. Lowering the right arm, the left arm up, turn your gaze toward the sky. Lowering the arm to your side, bend the right knee, come into reverse warrior. Swinging the arms over the head, hands to the floor, stepping back into down dog. Then lowering onto your knees and to come into child's pose. Let's take a moment here to relax. Let's rise up in our kneeling position, and we'll prepare for the gatekeeper's pose. We'll start with the left leg, your left leg, extending it out and extending the arms apart. As we moved into the triangle, simply reach away at first and create that spinal extension that I described earlier. Feel a release starting in the side body. Lowering the left arm, bring the right arm over into our gatekeeper's pose. Let's come back up, and we'll lower the knee down, coming back into our kneeling position and stay for a moment. Now the other side. Extend your right leg out. Arms extend away, and now we begin to reach out to this side and create that spinal extension as we described earlier. Then lowering the arm, left arm up and over into gatekeepers. Let's rise up, lower the knee to the floor. Come onto your hands and knees and then cross your ankles and sit with the legs crossed in the easy pose. So from here, we'll take your left leg out to the diagonal with the right knee bent. We're simply going to hinge gently. Make sure you have an internal rotation on that leg so the toes are not pointing to the back, but internally rotating and extending the crown of the head away to lengthen. Come gently into this shape, just to a place where you can relax, keeping the lower back straightened and hinging at your hips. Let's come back up, and we'll switch sides. Extending your right leg out, internal rotation, and let's slowly hinge, gently, taking your time. Let's rise up. Now we'll come into a straddle and more or less do the same thing. Internal rotation on both legs and gently come forward. Let's rise up. Extend your legs straight away into the staff pose. And again, we'll gently fold forward, being gentle with yourself, straightening the lower back by turning the tail toward the back wall. Let's rise back up and cross the legs. Take a moment to stay. And from here, we'll come into a seated side bend. So we'll start with the left leg out as we did before. The arms extend away, and at first we simply hinge and create that spinal extension. Just stay for a moment. We'll come to different places in this hinge. Some will reach a little further than others. Just find where it is for you. And then lower your left arm. Now, if we're a little higher up here, the arm will come against the shin. If we're a little further, gently, you'll feel your hands or your fingers hitting your toes. And if that's happening, you can take your thumb and grab your big toe with your palm facing the sky. If your hand is against your shin, the palm can be facing the sky as well. The other arm comes up and over. Spinal extension as we come into the side bend. Let's come back up and cross the legs. Take a moment to straighten your spine. And let's proceed to the other side. And now it's your right leg extended at the diagonal, internal rotation of the thigh. Arms extend apart, palms face the sky, and we just begin with a reaching away, finding where we can come to comfortably. Extending the spine, lengthening the spine as we extend the crown of the head away. feeling the slight contraction in these lower abdominals to support. And we'll lower the arm, and it might come against your shin as before, or it might hit your toes, and you might choose to grab your big toe as we did before. The other arm comes up and over, and just come to where you feel comfortable. The arm is either out, or if you're coming a little deeper into it, it might hit your toes on the top side. Let's rise back up, cross the legs, and straighten the spine. From here, we'll extend the legs out into our staff pose. Slide your hands back, then bend your knees to place your feet on the floor and lift your bottom off the floor. Either lower down onto your seat or swing through into pike. Let's come back up. And then we'll lower onto our seats, extending the legs out. And now we'll lift up with the legs extended if you can. The reverse plank. Lowering down and sitting in the staff pose once more, preparing to twist. Bend your left knee and draw the heel in. Straighten your spine, then crossing the leg. Choosing to either leave the right leg as it is, or choosing to bend the knee if you find that to be more comfortable. Extend your left arm up. As you breathe in, lengthen the spine. As you exhale, bring the hand behind you. And as you inhale, extend the right arm up, lengthen the spine. And as you exhale, you can either have the palm against your thigh, your outer thigh, or you might cross your elbow as you turn to look over your shoulder. With each exhale, draw the navel in and twist it in the direction of your turn. Let's unwind and come back into our staff pose, and we'll prepare for the other side. Bend your right knee. Draw the heel in, straightening the spine, crossing the foot, and deciding if you'll leave the left leg extended as it is or you find bending the knee more comfortable. Extend the right arm up, stretch and lengthen the spine, breathing in. As you exhale, bring the hand behind you. Then the left arm up as you breathe in, stretch. And as you exhale, either the palm gently against the outer thigh or the elbow crossing as you turn to look over your shoulder. Churning the navel center as you exhale, draw it in and turn it in the direction of your turn. Let's release, coming back into staff pose. Then we'll come onto our backs to prepare for bridge. Lay on your back and bend your knees, resting the back of your head against your mat. Drawing your heels toward your bottom. Heels are hip distance apart. As you breathe in, swing the arms up and back behind you as you lift your hips off the floor. And then lower back down, rolling down your spine. Let's repeat this movement a few more times. One more cycle. From here, what I'd like you to do is leave your arms on the floor at your sides and just lift your hips up. Externally rotate your shoulders and see if you can link your fingers underneath you. Staying in bridge. Rolling down the spine to come down. We'll come into a shape called legs up the wall. or supported shoulder stand. Since we're not actually against the wall, you can take your hands underneath your pelvis as you rest there. You might choose to put a block there. So putting a block there lifts the hips a little bit higher. If you have a block or a pillow, you can use that. This can come up even higher if you choose, and it's comfortable for you, coming into bridge and sliding the palms underneath the hips and extending the legs up into a supported shoulder stand. Choose the position that works for you comfortably. To come out of it, we'll lower one foot and then the other. If you have a block, slide it out from under you as you lower down. Take a moment to relax. Then extend your legs out, straighten them, squeeze the legs together, and prepare for half boat. Lifting either both heels and shoulder blades off the floor, or you can work with one heel off at a time. Holding. Let's lower down. Rest your head back. And draw your right knee into your chest. Preparing to come into a twist. Take the knee across as you turn to look in the opposite direction. Churning the navel center with each exhale. Gentle twist. Let's switch sides, extending the right leg out, draw the left knee in, and begin to twist in the other way. Coming back, hugging both knees into the chest, then extending the legs out. We're going to squeeze the legs together and come into a reclined side bend. Tuck your pelvis under and extend with your heels flexed. Take your heels and move them to the left as you bend your shoulder blades to the left. Now, as we come into the side bend, we want the body to be flat against the ground. We don't want to force it so far that we start to turn ourselves. So make sure that your hips are in the ground, as well as your shoulder blades as you come into the bend. Then we'll take the left arm and place it on the belly, below your belly button on the left side. Breathe into the palm of your hand. So as you breathe in, expand out into the palm of your hand with your belly. And as you exhale, draw it firmly away. Coming back to the center, straighten, and we'll move to the other side. The heels will shift right. The shoulder blades shift right. Again, make sure you're flat against the ground and you're not turning yourself. We take the right hand on the lower waist on the right side. Breathing into the palm. As you breathe in, exhale, draw it firmly away. Notice how you feel a deeper release in the side body when you do that. Squeezing your legs together as you do that. And let's come back to the center, straightening the legs. And we'll come into our Shavasana now. Make yourself comfortable. Close your eyes and relax. Letting go with each exhale. Feeling the ground under you. Imagine you're in a lush forest the trees with the leaves, perhaps seeing some blue sky peeking through some of the breaks of the leaves. Smelling the smell of a healthy and natural environment in the forest. Perhaps walking along a beautiful path, the trees strong and healthy. The animals, the insects, the birds, happy. Living in the present moment. Imagine when an eagle or a hawk is flying above the forest looking down. Does the eagle or hawk think, what time is it? Or is the time always now and only now? The concept of time is something that you could say we invented as a measure of how long it takes to go from here to there, perhaps. Perhaps the measure of time could be in days. That's one measure, day and night. But we've refined it down to the hour, 24 hours in the day, the minute, the second, the millisecond, the nanosecond, the femtosecond. And then also in terms of years, centuries, and millennia, eons. And yet this concept of time is useful to us as a measure, but it also can be something that creates anxiousness, especially if we're trying to keep to a schedule, or if we have a schedule that's changing, if we're performing actions that are not aligned to what it is that we want, and understanding that what we may want and what we should want may be different things. But either way, when we're doing something that we want, we think we want, it seems that time passes quickly versus when we're doing things that we don't want, it seems like it goes slower. It takes longer to finish. But when we're in the present moment, there's no time. There's only this moment, always. And there's a certain part of us that is unchanging. It doesn't change from one moment to the next. It doesn't change with time. It's always the same. And as we lay here just a bit longer, try to remember for yourself, what is that part of you that's always been the same? What is the feeling? That feeling of you that doesn't change. That was the same feeling of you when you were a child. Going back to a time that you can remember, what did it feel like to be you? when you were undisturbed? And what is that part of you that's the same now? When we were children, if we were in a good environment, perhaps we felt very safe and free, joyful. It's so beautiful to hear the sound of children laughing and playing. But what happened to us as we grew older? You could say that our minds became more advanced, more evolved, grown up. And you would think that as your mind became more advanced, wouldn't you think that there would be a greater degree of joy and happiness that you experienced as a child? And if not, perhaps we've trained our minds in a way that isn't serving us. And this is what meditation is about, to retrain the mind. So that the joy and happiness, the true nature of ourselves, the Purusha, is clear. And as our minds become more advanced and evolved, a greater degree can be experienced, not less. Let's begin to wiggle our fingers and toes. Deepen the breath and roll onto your right side and slowly help yourself come up so we can sit as we did at the start. It looks like it's going to turn out to be a very beautiful weekend, and I hope you have a chance to enjoy it, to go outside and walk or do whatever it is that you like to do, gardening, riding a bike. I like to do that. Let's bring our hands together at our heart center. And please join me with 3 Oms to finish our practice. Take a deep breath in. Shanti Namaste. Have a beautiful day, beautiful weekend. Thank you for working out with me together, practicing together. Stay well and stay safe. Have a nice day.